Question number four here. It says, is true rapture theology, is it true, that rapture theology did not exist before the 19th century and it's relatively a modern interpretation? Patrick, I'm going to give you my current thinking on this. So just so you guys know, this means that it's sometimes in my head, it feels like there's a file system, right? And some files I haven't opened for a while, and I'm like, what was in that file? It takes me like 10 minutes to just go, oh yeah. So my basic understanding is this. And maybe one of these days I'd like to do a video on the rapture. This is super far in the future, like years out, because it's not that big of a doctrine to me. But it's not there yet. So from my memory, the accusation against the doctrine of the rapture is just what you said there. It's, hey, man, people made this doctrine up. The rapture, nobody said this before the 19th century. It's like this dispensationalist thing. It's like this American thing. And before the 19th century, nobody in the church said it. The problem with this criticism, I think, is that it uses the term rapture to only refer to pre-tribulational rapture of believers 7 years before the second coming. Now, if that's the case, it's easier to say that it's a newer thing. I'm not confident that it is, though. I've found this, and this is my caution, this is why I don't want to comment too much on this. When people make big claims about history, they're often false. They're often oversimplified and false. And I see this over and over again. You see, the Bible, you can open up and read it, and you can double check the context. But history, you're just taking people's word for it, because chances are you won't do the work to see if it's true or not. You're obviously asking. I haven't done the whole work. I'm a little skeptical that nobody ever had this claim, before that time. But I also have a problem, which I've just mentioned, is that if you think of the word rapture as only referring to the timing of the rapture, 7 years before this tribulation, then I think you've got a problem. Because the very nature of the rapture is this idea that believers are caught up in the air to be with the Lord, and that seems to be a very, very early, Christian belief, not only supported in Scripture, but also found, I believe, in the Church Fathers. I'm pretty sure I've read specific comments. Off the top of my head, I don't recall. So I would say I tentatively think that that's a very early belief. The timing, however, is a different issue. But how much do we know about the eschatology of the early church? This is another issue. How much, like for instance, pick a church father, Origen, what was his eschatology? Right? Chrysostom, what was his eschatology? Clement, what was his eschatology? And a lot of these guys we don't really know. In many cases, they were more like premillennial. But then, not necessarily pre-trib. I'm not saying that, but they believed that the millennium was a future real coming. Papias believed this, and if memory serves, Eusebius, comes 300 years later, he maybe 200 years later, he mocks Papias for this, and he's laughing at him. He was kind of an idiot. He thought there was a literal 1,000 years. But what we're saying is that it does go back very early. The Didache, this about 95 AD church history document suggests that there's this premillennial type view, not necessarily pre-trib rapture. But the thing is, we don't know what they thought about when the catching up to be with the Lord was. So I think that this is a bit of a red herring, that this claim of, it's not historical. I'm interested in it. I'd like to see it further supported, but it only deals with the timing of the rapture, not the very idea that there is a catching up to be with the Lord. And I just want to make sure those two different issues are handled separately, because one seems to be very solid and the other one seems to be very much debatable. There's my short answer on that. Okay, we're going to go to the next question.